Saturday, 18 May 1963. The Roy Orbison Tour. Adelphi Cinema, Slough, England. It had begun rather eventfully. When the dark-haired Texas headliner arrived in Slough, just an hour or so before his tour's kickoff performance, there were crowds everywhere. Unruly girls with jiggling posters and hand-painted banners proclaiming, "We love you, Beatles!" and "Beatles forever!" Everywhere Roy Orbison turned, there were placards and crowds chanting, "Beatles, Beatles! We love the Beatles." "What's a Beatle, anyway?" Orbison paused inside the stage door. A young man with a bowl haircut tapped him on the shoulder. "I'm one," he said. "And you're?" "John Lennon, Beatle, rhythm guitar." "Well, girls love you forever, John." The holly, Elvis-esque Orbison made quotation marks with his fingers and grinned at the almond-eyed boy. "Forever, or till you sing, 'In Dreams'," John shot back. "Then I'm all but history, aren't I?" Orbison chuckled at the boy's droll sense of humor. "Well, nice to meet you while you're still at the top, then." Roy chuckled lightly, and the two loved stars eyed each other with mutual respect. There were two shows this evening, one at 6 p.m. and one at 8:30 p.m., and ticket holders were certainly getting their money's worth. The first act boasted Tony Marsh, the Terry Young Six, Erky Grant, Ian Crawford, film and recording star Louise Corday, and hit recorder of A Very Good Year for Girls, David Macbeth. To close the first act, Liverpool's newest stars, Jerry and the Pacemakers, were slated to roll out their latest chart-topper, How Do You Do It? Act 2 would be initiated by the much-sought-after Beatles, who prior to the program were being awarded a silver disc for their sales of From Me to You. And then the legendary Roy Orbison himself would grace the stage. It was a Danny Bettish production, full of big names with big hits. The Pacemakers had reached #1 with How Do You Do It on 3 April and had hung on to the slot handily for almost a month, until they were edged out by fellow Scousers, the Beatles, with From Me to You. Orbison's latest hit, In Dreams, had peaked at #7 on Billboard's Top 100 in America back in February, but it was still holding strong. And besides, Orbison's past hits had firmly ensconced him as a household name. That gave Bettish 3 amazing chart-toppers on one 18-day package tour, a feat almost unrivaled in the industry. The competition among the 3 leader groups, although congenial and silent, was quite keen. "Have those Beatles signs kindly removed from the front entrance?" Orbison had requested earlier that afternoon when John Lennon had gone his way, and it had been taken care of immediately. Orbison, after all, was earning 2 or 3 times the Beatles' fee. But the self-determining crowds refused to play along nicely with the prescribed pecking order. Even though Orbison crooned his biggest hits, Only the Lonely, Dream Baby, Running Scared, and In Dreams, girls with genuine tears and gnawed cuticles still wailed for the Liverpool lads. Without a doubt, the crowds appreciated Orbison. They cheered, applauded, and hung on his every note. But when the Beatles came out of the wings, they went wild. "And now," John endeavored to introduce the Beatles' second song of the evening. "And now," roaring screams. "And now for a song," more screams, "by that red-hot gospel-singing mama, Victor Sylvester." Mayhem. The girls craved the Beatles even more than their dribbly lettered banners could attest. "We love you to distraction," they shouted. But these birds were hardly distracted. They absorbed every detail. When Paul winked or waved, when George shared his slant smile, when Ringo shook his mane, when John offered up his goon clap and stomp, the girls dissolved into delirium. It was overwhelming. Orbison had a giant, magnificent voice that awed crowds into silence. But even a maestro like Orbison failed to hold the imagination of an audience under the spell of Beatle magic. Clearly, something would have to be done about the lineup. The Beatles were conjurers. Monday, 20 May, 1963, en route to Southampton. It seemed like the old Helen Shapiro days. They'd had an early breakfast of eggs and chips, and now the Orbison tour coach was on the move. Ringo and George were immersed in a sleepy game of cards with Jerry and Freddie Marsden. Paul quietly strummed his early morning guitar, and John buried himself in a pile of newspapers. Sipping Earl Grey and reading silently, looking for interesting snippets and inspirations for songs, John jotted ideas on his cigarette packets. But he bored easily, and after a while he began scribbling a note to Sin, writing on a napkin, trying not to rip the fragile fabric.
Dear Sin, well, here we are again, a coach and four. But it's not what you'd expect of a rock and roll tour. Our strongest drinks, Irish breakfast tea, and our headliners, a Texas country and western singer with a baby face. Yee-haw! The truth is, Orbison's fucking great, really. Much better than Dwayne Eddy or the Four Seasons, or even Beanie King would have been. I mean, despite the fact that Roy stands, like one o' Lewis's, in the middle of the fucking stage and rarely eyes a bat. He's fantastic, you know. Paul and me started shouting, "Yankee, go home," after his 14th or 15th curtain call last night. But he only stared at us and hung around anyway. I'm not even sure he speaks our language, Orbison. There is one thing that's rather eerie canal about him, though. Seemingly, it seems he lost his glasses back at some gig in Alabama, America, and he didn't get replacements before the tour. So he's donned these dark prescription glasses, and he wears them on stage, you know. Yeah, great aura and all that, but one can't help but remember. Speaking of which, Stuart'd be madly proud of us, you know. We got record raves from the crowd last night, and there's actually talk of us closing the show from here on out. Of course, there's a bit of a wiki's ticket, as it were. I mean, who'll bell the cat? Who'll tell old Roy? Paul and I have offered to tell him straight out that since he's making all the money, that's what I want. We ought to at least be slated final act. Turnabout's fair play, and all those other cabbages, eh? Well, we'll see how it goes, girl. All right, pal. Kiss the Jules for me. Pet Tim. And in spite of all the danger, give me love, love. We'll be home late on the 25th for our show at the Empire next day. Until then, beware. More missiles to follow. Love, John.
Thursday, 23 May, 1963. En route to the Odeon Cinema, Nottingham, England. Growing up in the sheltered garden district of Dothan, Alabama, Bobby Goldsboro had never anticipated something like this. Playing in the Roy Orbison Band, touring England, riding on a bench seat next to England's popular Beatles. It was all a bit surreal for a boy from the Circle City, where the Peanut Festival, an after-school chocolate soda at Nip and Ernie's, and the Spring Azalea Trail had been the biggest events of his grown-up years. But Goldsboro was talented, so talented that in 1960, when news reached the determined Auburn University freshman that Orbison was coming to the area and had dismissed his backup band for carousing, Goldsboro decided to snag that coveted job for his Dothan combo, the Webbs. Calling emergency rehearsals and practicing Orbison tunes over and over, Goldsboro, in 4 frantic days, rated his band for an audition with Orbison's manager. 3 years later, here Bobby was, 4 days into the biggest tour of his life, rubbing elbows with Jerry Marsden, Paul McCartney, John Lennon, Ringo Starr, George Harrison, and, of course, Roy as well. Goldsboro was tempted at moments to be a mite starstruck. But stars, he'd discover, were just regular Dothan boys with British or Texas accents. They loved to tease or Mickey take, as the Liverpudlians put it, or to pull your leg, as Goldsboro had always said. Of course, it had taken Paul McCartney 3 whole days to figure out that there weren't insects on the tour bus after all, and that the authentic croaks and cricket chirps only occurred when Goldsboro was around. but Macca, as the others called him, had taken it quite well. Don't let it get your goat. Goldsboro had smiled his charming southern grin beneath an Elvis pompadour. It took old Roy here an entire week to figure it out. Everyone, including Orbison, chuckled. But Bobby wasn't always ribbon. In fact, this morning he wanted to have a heart-to-heart with John Lennon. For the last 2 days, Goldsboro had been gathering courage to take the bench seat next to the Scouser and to offer a suggestion. Hey, John, I've been noticing you don't wear your glasses much, except on the bus, that is. Bobby tried to introduce the topic gently. But you seem to need 'em. I mean, I'm pretty sure you're bat blind, aren't you? Yeah, right. John was guarded with the newcomer. Well, I hope I'm not butting in where I'm not wanted, but Bobby waited for permission or rebuff, still as polite as his Southern Catholic mother had reared him to be. Go on. John was intrigued. He chewed gum and eyed the boy warily. Look, help me to understand. Aren't there times up there on that stage when you need to refer to your playlist or to avoid tripping over a chord or something like that? Yeah, right. John nodded. But the truth is, you and me, we can't see our hands in front of our faces, can we? No, not really. It's fucking inconvenient being blind. You got that right, Bobby commiserated, shaking his head. Not to mention how it feels hearing all that noise, John warmed to the Southern boy's sincerity. Not being able to see a fucking thing, you know. Terrifying, that. Well, Bobby smiled at Lennon's honesty. Have you ever thought about contact lenses? I mean, I wear 'em most of the time. I've even got 'em on right now. But your eyes aren't really red. John leaned up and studied Goldsboro with interest. And you don't seem tortured. That's not the way I thought it'd be. Heck no, Bobby sputtered a laugh. Contacts are the way to go, man. They're next to impossible to feel, and they make you see like you got brand new eyes. Contacts, eh? John mulled it over. Wait till Sin hears about this. Sin? The Alabama boy raised an eyebrow. Yeah, Cynthia, the girl back home. The one we never mention round here. Your girlfriend? Nah, me wife. My wife, who's as blind as I am, but you didn't hear about her from me. It's all taboo, you know. Oh, so the reporters don't know, or the fans? Oh, the reporters know, John explained, but they've been directed to erase it from their memories, as it were. One of them just asked if she could mention me wife yet, but when I said no, she nodded and agreed. That's the way we play it round here. And your wife, she doesn't mind? Bobby couldn't imagine a Dothan girl agreeing to such hurtful anonymity. No, not really. John paused thoughtfully. She wants me to have the toppermost of the poppermost, as it were. She doesn't want to stand in my way, you know. Oh, I see, Bobby put it simply. She loves you. Yeah, John said hoarsely, that. He edged from the rigid bench seat and reached for the ceiling, working the kinks out of his back. Tough at the tip on the eyes, Goldsboro. How about let me try putting in one of your contacts later on, just to see if it's humanly possible, you know. I might could, Bobby nodded, employing a favorite Dothanism, which ultimately meant, no, not hardly. Well, see that you do, son. John shot his own colloquial scouse right back. Worlds apart, the two guitarists smiled fondly at one another. They had discovered common ground. Somehow or another, musicians were always kindred spirits. Saturday, 23 May. En route to Odeon Cinema, Nottingham. The Beatles were headliners now. Biggest name in the marquee, closers of every show. They had quickly surpassed their mates, Jerry and the Pacemakers, and had even outshone the renowned Orbison. Almost every review in every town was remarkable. Only one tipped the balance in favor of the melodic American. It read, I am sorry to say that Orbison completely overshadowed the Beatles last night. He stood in the middle of the stage with his guitar and sang such songs as Only the Lonely, Running Scared, Love Hurts, and Crying. It was magical. The quality of his voice was truly amazing. So was his ability to convey raw emotion. It was like reading a great book. I was taken into a world I knew nothing about. Reading the words, John swallowed hard. His old self-doubt jostled him about. See? It hissed in his ear. You aren't all that you're cracked up to be, after all. There's the proof, Sonny Jim. Truth in black and white. When the voice niggled at him, there was only one cure. John rang Sin.
Hello?
What's up, Mrs. L?
Only the preparations for my husband's return tonight, that's what. Rumor has it that he'll be here for the Empire show tomorrow evening.
Believe half of what you hear, girl.
Well, I'll just have to wait and see then, won't I? If I wake up and there's a man in my bed,
it better be me.
What time will you be in, love?
Late or very early, depending on the way you look at it. But I'll be in, nevertheless.
I'll probably be up and about anyway, feeding Julian.
Well, do it quickly, right? I'm the one in need, you know.
Oh, and why is that?
Bad review. They said Orbison completely overshadowed us last night.
They or one?
Well, one, I suppose.
One opinion, John, against the hundreds who are going mad over you, everywhere I turn.
Orbison thinks we ought to go to America.
Does he?
Yeah, he said, dress like you're doing, keep the hair, say you're British, and get on a show like Ed Sullivan. That's the ticket to America.
And what does Brian say?
He says we're not ready. He says we've too much going on right here to jet off a world away.
I heard something about your getting your own BBC radio show.
Right. I thought we'd talked about it. Pop Go the Beatles, they're calling it.
What'll it be like? Thank Your Lucky Stars, only for radio rather than telly? Or something altogether different? And most important, do I need to worry about a pretty Janice as a host?
I don't know. Yeah, nah, and no.
Oh, come on, John.
Well, I don't know what it's like now, do I, Belle? I mean, we haven't done it yet. And yeah, it's like Lucky Stars. It's weekly musical interludes sandwiched in between slices of witty verbal repartee. In my bit, of course, the witty. But there's no panel of semi-clever, assaulted teens reviewing records as far as I know. And no girl host. Instead, we've the ever-charming MC P. Liters.
P. Liters?
You know, good old P. Liters, dryly referred to as Lee Peters, pre-Beatles.
I don't believe I've had the dubious pleasure.
Well, keep it that way. He's all wet.
Weekly?
Finally hit her.
Did you say weekly program, John?
Yeah, every Tuesday, at the stroke of 5.
If I'd told you 18 months ago that you'd be getting your own weekly BBC radio show, you wouldn't have believed me.
Well, as Ringo says, 10 years from now, we'll look back on all this and... It'll seem like a long time ago.
Funny.
I thought so.
John, seriously. The Echo just last night reported that girls from all over England are making pilgrimages to the cavern. Pilgrimages! Just because of the Beatles. Because of you. The reporter said the Beatles have turned Liverpool into the Nashville of the North. Or, are you ready for this? Nashpool, as it were.
Go on. John batted his eyelashes as if Sin could see him.
And Brian rang up Meme to say that he's having to divide NEMS into a northern division run by Frida and a southern division in London managed by someone else, Bettina Rose, I believe.
Right, John nodded. Frida, so I've heard, asked her dear old Irish father if she could go along to London with the rest of us. But he out and out refused, saying no daughter of his would be off to the smoke unsupervised. Frida, of course, thought she'd have to give NEMS the shove entirely. Resign, you know. She even lined up employment with Joe Flannery, as it were.
That's awful. You love Frida.
Yeah, well, Brian said she was far too valuable to him to let her defect. He said he needed her to keep things going back in Nashpool.
Though there's 2 divisions of NEMS now?
Yeah, and who knows, really? We might even have 3 before it's all over and done with, Bowell. 4 even.
So, in light of all that one negative concert review is?
Shite.
Exactly.
Clever girl.
Clever enough to be married to you, John Lennon.
And how's the aforesaid meme this heavy?
As ever.
And young Julian?
I think he smiled at me, John. Not an errant baby smile, mind you. A real one.
I'm going to smile at you tonight, love.
Well, wake me if I'm asleep.
You can count on it.
1, 2, 3.
I'm having an enormous effect on you, aren't I?
Says you.
Tissera, Powell.
Tatty bye, love.
And the dial tone sounded. For a moment, John stood, marveling that they'd concluded an entire conversation, husband and wife, without Memes interfering or Julian's crying. And he was surprised to find himself even more uplifted than he'd imagined he'd be. John wondered why he didn't call his wife more often. He wondered why turning to sin was always his last resort. Goldsboro, he decided, had it right, and about more than just the contact lenses. The fans loved him, but Cynthia loved him. John filed the concept away for later and headed back to the waiting coach. In a half hour or so, the tour would pull into Nottingham, and he wanted to get with Paul about the new song they'd been working on together. They called it, oddly enough, She Loves You. Quite unannounced, the city of Nottingham stretched before them, looking nothing like John had imagined it would. There were no forests or outlaws, no enticing Maid Marians. Instead, there was an inn designed after a Swiss chalet, an immense Romanesque council house, an old bicycle factory, and an aging lace-making facility. Pubs, ornate homes, and university buildings gave the sprawling urban city an intimation of old-world charm. Its winding streets twined up and over hills, and the coach gradually wound its way to the Odeon Cinema, their stop for the night.
"All ashore, who's going ashore?"
The coach driver rapped on the bus ceiling and barked over the intercom. "Well, that's us." Paul closed the composition notebook and tossed it into the scarred, zippered travel bag. "I still say we should do the Little Richard woos," John insisted.
"Well, right, yeah. We'll keep it in the back pocket."
Paul nodded perfunctorily.
"Though I wonder if Little Richard would agree with that, you know."
And tossing ideas back and forth, agreeing and disagreeing, the duo patiently waited for their opening to move off the bus and onto the waiting stage.
JohnLennonSeries.com today and immerse yourself in the life and legacy of John Lennon.